This week we're reviewing the pose Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana from the primary series of Ashtanga Yoga. Utthita meaning extended, Hasta meaning head, Padangusthasana meaning big toe pose. So it sounds much better in Sanskrit. I'm going to call you through the vinyasa count, which is a breath and movement entrance, and then we'll break down the pose a little bit today. So your first breath is an inhale, and you'll take the leg and extend it out, and exhale, either bringing the head all the way forward or remain standing for 4 cycles of breath, inhaling and exhaling. We come back to center on an inhale, and we exhale the leg then to the right and look over the left shoulder, your drishti over the shoulder for another 4 cycles of breath. We inhale back to center, exhaling, you can bring the head down and inhale the hands back to the hips and breathe for 4 cycles of breath. And then we release the leg back, and left side again is an inhale entrance. And exhale, either remain standing or bring the head towards the leg for 4 cycles of breath. We come back to center on an inhale. We exhale the leg to the left, look over the right shoulder, 4 cycles of breath. We inhale back to center, exhale again, remain here or extend over the leg, hands back to the hips, and breathe for 4 cycles of breath. And Samasthiti brings us back to the center. So a little bit about the anatomy of the pose. This is our first balancing pose. So it has a lot to do with our connection to the earth and rooting down through the feet and pulling up through strong legs. So for us here in the West, it's a wonderful pose because we spend so much time in these boxes on our feet we call shoes. But this is an opportunity for us to work those muscles and really connect to the earth in this balancing pose, using the toes and the feet and muscles at the very bottoms and ankles and all the way up through the legs that support us. So the pose begins in a mountain pose, and then as we move into just standing on one leg, you'll kind of notice where you shift around and find the muscles you need. What's helpful in this pose is to engage the bottoms of the feet. The 4 points we talk about in Ashtanga are 2 points in the balls of the feet and 2 points in the heels, and even slightly floating the toes so you're not digging your curled toes down into the floor. And that's going to help give you a little bit more stability. And then once you start to move into the extended version of that first inhale, you can either keep the knee bent if the hamstring's tight, or start to work it out, finding where the hamstring can start to lengthen to full extension. And again, also an option is to bring the head all the way forward over the leg. But it's not necessary, especially if you're new. You kind of find yourself in each pose and where you need to start and where you can kind of grow into the pose as well. Another important thing about the anatomy of this pose is that we're going to elongate the spine and open the chest wide. So I always tell my students you're going to be really tall and really wide in this pose. So once you establish your balance, you want to right away think of bringing that energy all the way up to the crown of the head in elongation. So rooting down through the bottom of the foot and reaching all the way up through the crown of the head. Once the hand comes to the hip, we start to pull the shoulders down away from the ears and back and get a little bit more width in the chest area as well. Obviously this pose is a balancing pose, but it's also a hip opening pose. So the reason that we bring the leg to the side then actually opens the hips up. And again, if you have tight hamstrings or you're just new to the pose, you don't quite have your balance there yet, you're going to go ahead and keep the knees bent and open it the same. And as we advance in this pose, what happens is we start to move the leg out slowly, and again, you find your own flexibility here. When you bring your hand to the hip, you'll also take a little attention to bring that opposite hip back. At the same time, I'm opening my chest as well, so I'm going to start to bring that opposite shoulder back as well. So again, the pose itself has a lot of length and width into it. Energetically, we want to look at all 3 bodies today. So the energy in this pose is obviously it's going to be elongation through the Sushumna Nadi. So we want the prana to move up and the apana to move back down, which is going to give us some stability as well and some of that length that we're looking for. But also the prana is going to be part of what moves us into this heart area. The prana vayu in a long neck, udana vayu, which we've been studying last semester to get some good energy into the heart area and into the upper part of your body. Emotionally, if we're looking at the chakras in this pose, I always tell my students, you know, when you're new to the pose, you're really sort of working more in the lower chakras, those first three, because it's about your feet and stability in your legs. And so at first we're kind of wobbly, you know, and we start to begin this pose, and so that's sort of where we're working on is the energy here. And what's helpful to us in both the anatomy, the energy, and the emotional body in this pose is to really focus on engaging the bandhas. So Uddiyana Bandha means we're going to pull the lower belly in. Mula Bandha means we're going to contract and lift those perineal muscles, giving us a nice strong base to elongate from and to be stable in the pose from. So those first three chakras, as we're just trying to get our stability at first, as we engage the bandhas and stabilize from below the spine, we start to be able to find some steadiness and strength in this pose. And then as we move forward and grow a little bit into the pose, we find some from that stability and strength in the center, we get a little bit of that elongation in the spine and opening in the heart and extension in the hamstring. And we move into the upper chakras. So then once we start to move a little deeper into it, we start to breathe more into the heart area and get wider in the chest and find more extension in the upper part of the body, length in the neck and moving the shoulders down. So we're in the fourth chakra, the fifth and the sixth, and all the way through the seventh chakra. So as you're doing this pose, I always encourage my students, find yourself. So when you're newer to this, if you came to yoga late in life, you might have problems with stability and balancing. Is don't try to look like the person next to you, but start off in the pose with a steady drishti looking forward and keep the knee bent, slowly extending and slowly giving yourself that opportunity to be in the full pose for 4 breaths in each side and coming back to center. And also I want to encourage you in this pose to remember that it's a breath-based practice, and this whole pose is really based on your breathing. So as much as you can, have full inhales and exhales into this pose. Ekam inhale, Due exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Trini inhale, head up. Chatwari exhale. Breathe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pancha inhale, exhale, Shat inhale, breathe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ashto inhale, Nava exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Dasha, head up. Ekadasha, exhaling to the left, and breathe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Dwadasha, inhale. Exhale. Triyodasha, hands to the hips, and breathe 1. Shoulders back. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Samasthitihi.